So this is an autosomal recessive pedigree, and to find this, I just Googled autosomal recessive pedigree. Oh, goodness. Anyway, you can see here that it is, like I said, autosomal recessive. Autosomal meaning that it's not on the sex chromosomes. And you can see here there's a bunch of individuals who are filled in and a bunch of individuals who are not filled in. So remember, you know something immediately about the folks who are filled in. And what you know about them is that they have two lowercase letters, right? Because they have the recessive trait. So if they were heterozygous, they would not have the recessive trait, right? And if they were homozygous dominant, they would not have the recessive trait. So you know immediately that anyone who is filled in has got two little b's. We also know something about the folks who are not filled in. So immediately you know that they have at least one big B. They could be homozygous dominant, they could be heterozygous. We don't know yet, we haven't thought that far ahead, but we know they've got a capital B, all of them. Because again, if they had two lowercase b's, they would have the condition, right? They'd be filled in. This is going to get a little messy, sorry. Oops. Great, and so that's just a ton of information we know without ever even thinking about it. We just automatically know all of this stuff. So let's say this was a condition of health concern, and maybe a person wanted to know what their other allele is. They want to know what their genetics look like. Let's start from the top here. So great-grandpa, or great-great-grandpa, whatever. Do we know anything about his other allele? Maybe, but if you just are looking at his kids, we don't know anything yet. But if we look go ahead and look down here at number 2, we see number 2, his son, is someone who wound up, in this third generation here, is someone who wound up with the condition. So then what do we know about this guy, number 2, son number 2? Well, we know that he has at least one little b. And what do we know about his wife? We know that she has at least one little b, right? Because they have a daughter who has the condition. So she must have at least one little b. Let me erase. Oh no. Are you kidding? Oh, there we go. Okay. And so if she has two little b's, again, we know that he has a little b. We know that his wife has a little b. But where did he get this little b from? Well, he definitely got it from his mom. We still don't necessarily know anything else about his other allele. Let's look over here now. Do we know anything about son number 3 in generation 3? Do we know anything about his other allele? No, we do not, because both of his parents are heterozygous. Let's look at generation 2, individual 3. We know she has a big B. And if we look down at her kids, we see that some of her kids got the condition, so that we know she is heterozygous, and we know her husband is heterozygous as well. Fantastic. So what do we know about son 2-5's other allele? What do we know about his other allele? Well, we know that he is heterozygous, because if you look at his dad, individual 1-4 or 1-4, we see that he is homozygous recessive. So that's the only other allele that this gentleman could have gotten. And the same thing for daughter 2-6. We also have another piece of evidence that she's heterozygous, and that is that she has a son who has the condition. Fantastic. What do we know about her daughter? Well, we know that her daughter has a big B, because she doesn't have the condition. See, she's empty circle. She's not been filled in. And we know that she has a little b because her dad has the condition. Okay. What do we know about number 311? This woman over here. Well, we know she has a big B. We know all of her kids have a big B because again, they don't have the condition. But that's kind of it for her anyway. We know she has a big B. And we also see that her dad has the condition, so we know all of her children are heterozygous. Let me draw one thing. There we go. So we know that they are big B, little b. And so we've pretty much figured out what almost everyone on this chart's genetics are. We know they have, this person has a big B. There's still some holes in here. Like we don't know what these people who don't have any kids and do not have the condition, we don't know what their genetics are necessarily. But we can figure out a pretty vast majority of this just by knowing a few pieces of information. So let's move now to an X-linked recessive trait. So this looks kind of like an autosomal trait, but we need to remember something about biological males and biological females. So you should recall that females are XX, they have two X chromosomes, and males are XY. They have an X chromosome and a Y chromosome. And again, this is sex-linked, meaning that it is on these X and Y chromosomes up here. An autosomal trait is just on one of the other chromosomes. So you have 23 pairs of chromosomes. One of those pairs is a sex chromosome. The other 22 are autosomes, or non-sex chromosomes. The other thing to remember is that females are circles in this case, and males are squares. So what do we know about the chromosomes of generation 1? But without even thinking really about anything related to this pedigree, you know immediately that this guy is XY, and the woman he had a child with is XX. So if we move on to generation 2, we see that this biological female is XX and this biological male is XY. And we continue to fill out chromosomes in this way until we get to the bottom and we filled out all the males and all the females. We know what everyone's chromosomes looks like. So again, we have a bunch of information here without really even thinking too much about the pedigree. All right. And it looks like I missed one. She is, of course, going to be X. Now that we know this information, we can start going through the pedigree and looking at who is filled in and who is not to see who has the condition. So this male is not filled in. He does not have the condition. We're going to make him X, capital B. And the woman he had a child with is, the person he had a child with is filled in. She does have the condition. She becomes X little b. It's an awful big little b, but she's X little b, little b. All right, great. We move on to their kids, and we see that both of her sons wind up having the condition. So they become X little b, Y. And we don't put anything by the Y because, again, if we were to draw the X chromosome and the Y chromosome, here is his little b, and there's nothing else on the Y chromosome. No help there. So then we look at their daughter here. We know she has at least one big B because she does not have the condition. And what do we know about her other chromosome? Well, we know that she has a little b because her mom has little b's. That's all her mom has to give. We look here at their other son, and of course he is going to wind up with a little b because not only does he have the condition, but he gets his X's from his mom. Always. He has to get his X's from his mom. Or, yeah, he always gets his X's from his mom because he gets his Y from his dad. We look at the woman he has a child with, and we know she has at least one big B. We don't necessarily know anything about, or actually, I guess we do know something about her other little b. No, we don't. We just know that she has at least one big B. We might come back to that, but I think she is done. So we look at this family over here between generation 2 and 3, and we see that these folks down here do not have the condition in generation 3. So I'm going to start by giving them a bunch of big B's. Sorry, it's a little bit messy. And then let's look at, for instance, we'll look at this girl right here. These are her 2 chromosomes. And we can give their mom a big B too, because we see that she does not have the condition. So this girl got a X from her mom, which is a big B, we see, but she got this other X from her dad, so we know that she is heterozygous. She is definitely heterozygous. We have another piece of information that could indicate that to us by looking at her son down here, who is a little b, because he is filled in. He has the condition too. And we know these other folks have at least one big B. They have at least one. So I went ahead and filled in some more of the information that we've been missing here. And it looks like I actually forgot. Looks like we actually forgot to fill in the fact that she has at least one capital B. We aren't sure about her other. She's got at least one capital B because she could have gotten this from her mom or this from her mom. She definitely got this one from her dad. All right, so that is how you go through an X-linked recessive pedigree. I would recommend just filling in all the information you know before you even start thinking in terms of the pedigree. Keep in mind, these are all going to be recessive traits that we're looking at. You could do a dominant trait, and we may talk about that. And it just looks a little bit different. It's the same style of sort of deductive reasoning where you go through and figure out what things must be. If you have any more questions, shoot me an email, but those are pedigrees.